I asked AI, if you had to live in Winnipeg, where would you live? Here is what it said. Welcome back. My name is Cody. I'm a realtor here in Winnipeg, and like you saw in the intro, today we're asking AI, if you could live in Winnipeg, where would you live and why? Okay, so we asked ChatGPT if you were an all-knowing AI who wanted to live in Winnipeg based on being a family or other criteria that you can decide, which neighborhoods would you choose and why? And the criteria that it gave me was, it reviewed Instagram geotags, so how many people were active in specific areas, Reddit threads, scanned satellite images, it crunched numbers, it looked at walkability, crime rates, and after all of that stuff, there was 4 neighborhoods that it picked as the spot it would want to live in Winnipeg. And AI is sort of just a generalization of what most people think, and so it's going to be probably no surprise where some of these places are. But there is one that I think is going to be maybe atypical that would surprise you. Okay, and spot number 1 was River Heights. And we've talked about River Heights in previous videos about how it's a very character-driven neighborhood, lots of urban canopy, tons of tree life, close to parks, decent schools. But AI has called it the balanced brain decision. So it prioritized things like walkability, its proximity to downtown for amenities, its safety, its charm, and its parks. And I asked AI, when you're picking these neighborhoods, can you pick some pros and cons of each? And the cons are obvious. It talked about the high price tag because it's highly desirable. And that depending on where you are, sometimes it can be a little bit harder to get from one of the major roads, because if you're on Grant or Taylor, it's going to be a lot of traffic lights. If there is traffic, it can be hard to get to Stafford or Pembina or Kenaston. Now, it highlighted that River Heights was great for families, young professionals, and it said golden retrievers, which I think perfectly captures what River Heights is. It's a lot of young millennials looking to move into the neighborhood or stay in there if they're currently in there, that have maybe a couple young kids or they're planning to start a family. They usually have a dog, they want a fenced in backyard, and I think AI really nailed this neighborhood. Okay, the second one, and this is interesting because I think a lot of people won't anticipate this, because Winnipeg is not known for its downtown scene, but AI chose the Exchange District for the aesthetically obsessed algorithm. Now, this is going to be based on the fact that it's probably prioritizing looking at young people, proximity to downtown for jobs. It did take in crime and safety, and it had that as a con, but the pros were a high walk score, trendy restaurants, art galleries, lots of amenities and events, warehouse lofts, which is a cool trendy aesthetic if you're into that, close to downtown action and nightlife. Sometimes that action is not so great, and then perfect for creatives, remote workers, and socialites. The biggest con is that downtown in the Exchange is not family friendly. If you love exposed brick, it's great. If you want your kids to go to school, not a ton of accessibility for that. Okay, the other part is that downtown actually doesn't have great green space access. There is a little bit along the river, but if you know anything about Winnipeg, that river rises and lowers quite significantly in the spring, and so it really limits your potential to be along that green space, except for in the summer and in the fall a little bit. In the winter, no, but like there's no green space, it's all white. And my favorite comment that AI left about the Exchange District was that if you own a MacBook, it might be a good place for you. Okay, the third neighborhood was St. Boniface, and it called this the romantic processor pit. So if you like being somewhere that's a little bit different than the typical city, you do get those French vibes in St. Boniface. You do get views of downtown across the Red River. You're removed from some of the less desirable parts of downtown, but you're still pretty close proximity-wise. The river actually does act as a nice barrier in the summer. In the winter, people like high crime and homeless people can walk across the river because it's completely frozen. And so the winter, that gap that normally is there as a natural barrier is not there because it's frozen and they can walk across. Doesn't happen all the time because it's terrible to do that. It's freezing and it's very slippery, but it does happen. Okay, it also highlighted that St. Boniface is walkable and very bike friendly. There's a strong sense of community and culture. It's one of the historic neighborhoods in Winnipeg, and it does have very deep French roots and people who appreciate that. For example, I was in a restaurant last week called Le Croissant, and the tellers were all speaking French. I mean, they also spoke English, but if you're looking for something different, this is a great neighborhood for that. Okay, the cons of this neighborhood is that housing can be a mix. You have some older homes that are nice and character driven, and then some older homes that are decrepit and need to be torn down and rebuilt. There's also parts of St. Boniface that are very industrial. If you go far enough east on Marion, you get into sort of a weird area that doesn't feel like you're inside the city. It's very industrial. It used to be the edge of the city, but we've since built around it. And so you get some cons from that, specifically the maple leaf plant that smells like hot dogs. And the other downside is that some areas have really old infrastructure. So roads, sewer, public access can be really hard to come by. I will say one of my favorite parts about St. Boniface, it's one of the only places in Winnipeg that has elevation changes that aren't just like creeks. Like you actually will go down a road. It feels very different. And if you're not from Winnipeg, you won't understand that because everything is so flat. But if you are from Winnipeg, go drive around St. Boniface in the Norwood East area and you'll realize what I'm saying. You go downhill. It's crazy. Okay, and so if you want to pretend that you're in Montreal but still live in Winnipeg, St. Boniface is a great place for you. And the fourth place that AI highlighted was for the logically optimized life because of its urban planning, and that is Bridgwater. And again, we've talked about Bridgwater and some of these other neighborhoods a lot, but I'll go over the pros again because this is from AI, it's not from me. So Bridgwater, one of the highlights is that it's a lot of newer construction. The neighborhoods have been designed, so it's actually been planned neighborhoods, not just neighborhoods that have popped up over time. And so there's areas for suburbs and there's areas for shopping with higher density living. So a lot of the apartments are congregated in an area with lots of roundabouts, less lights, which is a lot nicer, with lots of shops and coffee stores and a lot of amenities that they're working on through mixed commercial and residential units. Okay, it's very kid-friendly, very dog-friendly, very family-orientated. The biggest downside I see is that it's meant for cars. You're not meant to walk. Unless you live in that high-density area, which with apartments, anywhere else you need a car. It's not super easy to get to. There's not a ton of buses because most of the people moving there have vehicles anyways, and the bus access isn't quite there for Bridgwater. And so if you're looking to be in somewhere that buses, this maybe isn't the neighborhood for you. Okay, and AI's honorable mention was Wolseley, which it called the AI's wild card. And the specific line that ChatGPT said was that Wolseley is the cool glitch in the matrix that it can't stop thinking about. So Wolseley is ultra walkable, very progressive and artsy, very strong sense of community. People want to stay in Wolseley. They move from one area of Wolseley to a different area that they think is better Wolseley. Close to downtown. You don't get all the crime that you get for being downtown. There is some adjacent crime you beat from being close to, but not in downtown. And the cons is that it's really gone up in price. We did a video on how Wolseley is one of the highest appreciating neighborhoods this year. It can be very competitive to try and get into the neighborhood. And parking can be very hard on a lot of streets because there's not a ton of parking, but the homes are so big that there's usually lots of people living in these spaces with not a ton of parking spots. So if you like to bike more than you like to drive, or you like to brew your own beer or kombucha, then this might be a great neighborhood for you. And so that's it for today. If you want to see what any of the homes in these areas actually cost, book a consultation with me. We can go over each of the areas and look at which one would actually fit you best, and look at you as not a robot, because you're not AI. You have your own opinions, and that's why some neighborhoods might be better for you than other people. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.